Hi, I'm Kabrina and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, I am starting over a bunch of things in my life. And one of the things I'm starting over is training my adorable dog, Poppy. So if you go back and look at my channel, you can see a video kind of explaining what I'm doing with starting over with training for her, kind of an introduction. And if you watch that video, you'll see some of the things that I would want to work on training her and why I want to train her some more. So one of the first things that I wanted to start with training her on was walking nicely on a leash, or a heel command, because she needs a lot of exercise, and I have also been working on exercise, and I would be able to do that a lot better if I could do it with her walking nicely instead of pulling me all the time. So at the start of this video, I took Poppy out to our backyard. I have watched some videos on how to teach your dog to walk nicely on a leash from a professional dog training school. And I am using their advice partially because my mom also has been using their videos with her dog Groot, and I've seen the success that she's had with him. So I thought I would try that for myself as well. Now, as you can see, Poppy is clearly fighting me, and this is not what I would say is a normal amount of her fighting me. I was using, under the advice of the dog training company, I was using what is called a prong collar. And I'm going to put a picture of a prong collar up on the screen. So this is what a prong collar looks like. And it's not quite as intimidating as it looks. I have put one on my own arm and felt what it feels like. But as you can see, there are little prongs, literally, that get pointed in towards the dog's neck, and the little triangle chain you can see there allows the collar to tighten or loosen. That's called a martingale attachment, I believe. And basically, when you give a quick pull on the leash, it just briefly kind of essentially pokes the dog to kind of be like, hey, stop it. That's not what we're looking for. You need to change that behavior. And you can do the same type of correction with just a regular collar, but this particular dog training group recommends using this for several reasons. And so I wanted to, at least for this first attempt, see how it would go if I truly completely followed their suggested advice. But the one problem that I ran into is that I don't know for sure how to tell if it's the right size. So I ended up concluding, as you can see in the video, Poppy's really not having the prong collar, and I had taken a link off because I was worried it was too loose. And I think at that point it became too tight, because even when I was not giving her any sort of correction, she was uncomfortable in that collar in a way that I've never seen her be before. So as you can see at this point in the video, I paused to give her some affection because I wanted to make sure she was okay and that she was not overstressed. After I gave her some good solid time, I did end up deciding to continue trying a little bit longer because I was really torn on, okay, is she just uncomfortable because there's something new? Is it hurting her? It was really difficult for me to tell. So I continued trying with the prong collar at the size that I had it for a few more minutes, but then I ended up deciding to take the prong collar off and attempt it with just her regular collar, at least for the backyard. So for the rest of this session of training, I did use just her collar and not the prong collar. And by this point, we'd already done a few different strategies. What you can see me doing right here is called step backs, which is basically where you just walk in a direction and then you take a step back and change directions. And I'm not sure if I'm doing this perfectly. I might be supposed to be stepping back harsher or something. But the point is to just change directions with the dog. And you can do it. It can be a tool to use when the dog is actively pulling, or it can just be a way to practice, hey, you got to stay following me. So the good news is that she was doing really well, even with just her regular collar. And throughout the rest of this session, she did a really good job, but I also was kind of feeling like it's impossible to tell if she did a really good job the rest of that session because she already had experienced the feedback of the prong collar, or if she just genuinely didn't need it and could do only her collar. This is also the first stage of this training. She's in the backyard. It's not like there's no temptations. She can smell the grass. There are squirrels sometimes, but the backyard doesn't have like tons of animals just all around it all the time. And it doesn't have as many unfamiliar smells or new smells each day as like the park would, or even possibly the neighborhood. So it's a good first place to start. And I also was doing a few other techniques that I learned from the video. What you see me doing right here is what I would call a right circle. It's based on a left circle, but I keep her on my right side, so I call her right circle. And basically it's just practicing making her stay nice and close to me when I'm turning in a direction where she's up against my body, and she did really well. The other thing is that every so often you're supposed to stop, and if the dog can, have the dog sit and give what they called calm affection, which is what you see me doing now, which is basically just you can smile at them, but you're not supposed to talk to them, and you just calmly pet them. And I admittedly found this a little bit hard because I am used to, if she's doing something well, at the very least in a calm voice saying like good girl or good job. So it was hard for me to just silently give her affection. But I mean, I think she did like it, and for sure it's a better motivation than food for her, because food just gets her too focused on the food. She's not focused on the goal anymore. So the other strategy that you've already seen me doing several times, and you see me doing again here, is step backs, and then also just walking in a circle, taking her on those corners. So that was pretty much it for this first session. And I felt like she did a really good job. So I decided for the next time to take her out into the neighborhood where cars going by or like dogs barking or things like that could present a little bit more of a distraction and an issue. Okay, so for this day 2, I did decide to try the prong collar again. And what I did is I did add that link back onto the prong collar so that it wasn't as tight. And there are a couple of things that I immediately noticed. First of all, at no point on this walk with the prong collar was she fighting me the way that she was in the backyard the first day. So that's a good sign to me that it maybe was just too tight, and it's not that the collar itself is just bad for her. Second thing is, whenever I grab a collar or a leash, she always has historically gotten so excited because she knows that that means she's going to get to go usually for a walk or at least outside for an adventure. And she was the same when I grabbed the prong collar on the second day. Even though our first day of doing this had been a little bit problematic with the prong collar, she was just as excited as she normally is to go on a walk with that prong collar as her first cue that we were going to do so. So that tells me that there was no permanent damage done to her psyche. And so I decided to continue following the advice and using that prong collar, but with the other link added back in to make sure that it was not too tight. And as you can see, she seemed to be doing really well. She responded really well on this walk. We used the same techniques that we used in the backyard, the step backs, the big circles, the right hand turns, and we practiced all of that. She definitely still had some times when I had to correct her or fight her, but she did so well overall on this walk that I felt like she could handle a significant length of time without getting stopped to give affection. And I managed to get that to the point where I felt like she could go about 5 minutes before I stopped to give her the affection, and it would still work. That's not to say that she could go 5 minutes with 0 corrections or 0 issues, but she could go a good amount of time. And since the corrections are not verbal, they're just the leash corrections, it felt like there weren't too many corrections in that period of time. So she did well enough by this second day that I felt like we were at the point where she needs to be in the environment that I'm actually going to be walking her in for this to really make a difference, because I knew that there's a big difference for her between this neighborhood or the backyard and the park that we go to. The park has lots of squirrels and birds and often other people, sometimes other dogs. There's tons of new smells. And that's another thing that the trainer recommends, is not letting them look down to sniff. So she was doing well enough that I hit the point of saying, okay, I really can't keep her here. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that when I've been walking her before, it's been like 30 minutes straight, and she's not at a training level where I feel like she can manage that. So right now we're going to stick to 5-minute bursts, but hopefully for a length of about 20 minutes to build up her stamina on getting that done and following the corrections. With that being said, this is the end of the first part of training her. This was the end for this week. This particular week, I only did about 2 times. And I will look forward to sharing with you how it continued in the park in next week's video. So if you're interested to see what happened when I took her into the wide world, I hope you will come back and see that next week. Thanks for watching.